So, a very good morning to one and all. So, yesterday we have started our first class. So, taxation paper number 4, it is for 100 marks. And as we have seen now, part 1, income tax for 60 marks. And part 2, GST, goods and services tax for 40 marks. And after that, we have seen the list of chapters which we are going to learn from the income tax portion. Right, ma'am? So first chapter, introduction to income tax. Second chapter, residential status. And third chapter, income from house property, capital gains, PGBP, income from salaries, income from other sources. Then chapter number 8, clubbing provisions. Chapter number 9, set off and carry forward of losses. Chapter number 10, chapter 6A deductions. 11, total income problems. 12, advance tax and interest. 13, return of income. 14, residential status part 2. 15, tax deduction at source and tax collection at source. 16, exemptions, and 17, miscellaneous concepts in income tax. Miscellaneous concepts in income tax. So totally 17 chapters we are going to learn from the income tax portion. Right, ma? And from the GST, 10 chapters. The list of chapters which we are going to learn from GST, that I will tell you in tomorrow's, in the GST portion class. So whenever we are starting the GST, first I'll tell you the list of chapters in GST which we are going to deal with. Then we will continue. Okay, ma'am. Now coming to the question paper pattern, we have seen that in income tax and in GST, question number 1 is a compulsory question. Question number 1 is a compulsory question. And in income tax, you will get that question from total income problems. You will get that question from total income problems. So the very first question immediately after opening the taxation paper, the very first question you can see total income problems. It's a compulsory question and the marks weightage, I can say a minimum of 10 marks, maximum of 12 marks. Minimum 10 marks, maximum 12 marks. Sometimes it is even 14 marks as well. It is even 14 marks as well. So the lengthiest question is total income problems, which contains the provisions from all the chapters. Right? It contains the provisions from capital gains, PGBP, income from salaries, house property, income from other sources, deductions. So it is a consolidated problem. Total income problem means it is going to be a consolidated problem.
The Bluetooth device is ready to pair.
Next. So, first compulsory question is that total income problems. And next one, in every examination attempt, you can see a guaranteed question from PGBP. One question compulsory for 8 marks. A guaranteed question from PGBP. One question compulsory for 8 marks. And next, capital gains also one question compulsory for 8 marks. One question compulsory for 8 marks. Total income problems, compulsory question. Definitely you will get a question in every examination attempt. PGBP, one definite question. Capital gains, one definite question. And next here comes chapter 6A deductions. Chapter 6A deductions, you may not get a direct question from this chapter, but the provisions from chapter 6A reductions, will be asked in total income problem, will be asked in PGBP, and will also be asked in the capital gains question. That means when you're doing PGBP question, in that question also you will be having some provisions from chapter 6A deductions. When you're doing capital gains question, in that question also you will be having some provisions from chapter 6A deductions. So in that manner, chapter 6A deductions very, very important. Without having the knowledge of chapter 6A deductions, you cannot do total income problems, you cannot do PGBP problem. Means you may doing the problem for 80% or 70%, not 100%. Only after you have the knowledge of chapter 6A reductions, then 100% of the problem you can do. Clear now? So that is why chapter 6A reductions also very, very important chapter. And next, recent times we are getting a compulsory question from TDS and TCS also. One question we are getting, but not for 8 marks. The weightage is hardly 4 marks or 5 marks. Because we are observing a lot of amendments from this chapter, TDS and TCS. And taxation is such a kind of paper where more concentration is on amendments, latest provisions. So the institute wants to check it out, whether the student is updating his knowledge or not, whether the student is updating his skills and updating his provisions, whether is he updated with the latest acts or not. This is what the institute will check out. So that is why taxation paper contains amendment provisions. In every examination attempt, amendments plays key role. Amendments. We can expect 10 to 15 marks from amendments. 10 to 15 marks from amendments. Now, for May 2021 and November 2021, Finance Act 2020 provisions are applicable. Finance Act 2020. Now, whatever the material I'm going to give you, that material is updated as per the Finance Act 2020 provisions. So all the amendments which were taken place in the Finance Act 2020, which were placed already in our material. Are you following now? So TDS and TCS is such a kind of chapter where we are observing a lot of amendments in every Finance Act. So thereby we can expect one compulsory question from the TDS and TCS. Now you can see how many marks we already know. Total income problems, minimum 10 marks. We can expect 12 marks. PGBP 8 marks. Capital gains 8 marks. And then chapter 6A reductions we can expect up to 5 marks. And then TDS and TCS 5 marks. Okay now. And also I can say set off and carry forward of losses is such a kind of chapter where we can expect one question compulsory for 8 marks. Set off and carry forward of losses. It is also one of the very important chapters. Set off and carry forward of losses. One question expect for 8 marks. So that means here we can also add 8 more marks. So that means, so 20, 28, 38, 46 marks question paper is already known to you out of the 70 marks. 46 marks question paper. Worst case scenario, even if you take 40 marks, enough now. And then the pass marks is already known to you. From these chapters, you will get questions. Clubbing provisions, sometimes you are getting a definite question, sometimes not. We cannot say clubbing provisions are, it is a definite question chapter. Right. So if you concentrate on these chapters, total income problems, chapter 6A deductions, PGBP, capital gains, set up and carry forward of losses, TDS and TCS, If you concentrate on these 6 chapters, you will score minimum 40 marks. 40 marks only from 6 chapters. Only from 6 chapters. Out of the 17 chapters, if you become master in these 6 chapters, you can score easily 40 marks. Are you following, mom? In every examination attempt, you can see the questions from these 6 chapters. So that is why I said, though it is the lengthiest subject, scoring marks in taxation is very, very easy, quite comfortable. What you all need to do is, you need to attend to the classes every day, regularly, without any failure, right? And you must be attentive during the sessions, during the classes, must be attentive. Clear now? Next. So these are the list of chapters and the important chapters from the income tax. Next. Just a second. Right, now let's moving on. So yesterday I asked you to maintain a separate notebook for the income tax portion. Hope everyone maintained the same. Hope everyone writing them in that particular notebook. Very good. Now let's moving on. Right. Now, let's have this introduction session with 3 questions. Number 1. Why? What? And how? Why? What? And how? So if you understand the answers to these 3 questions, then the maximum fundamentals of income tax will be covered here. Why? Why the concept of income tax has been introduced into India? Why the concept of income tax has been introduced to India? Why? Number 2, what is income tax? What is income tax? Number 2, how income tax introduced into India? Introduced into India. So why the concept of income tax has been introduced and how it was introduced and what is income tax? These are the 3 questions we need to learn. These are the 3 questions. First one, why? Just a second. Okay, let's continue on. Introduction to taxes. First, let us try to understand the answer for the first question. Why the concept of income tax has been introduced in India. This is the first question mark. Now, everyone knows that we have an Income Tax Act. There is an Indian Income Tax Act 1961. That means, sir, don't we have the concept of income tax prior to 1961? No, that's a wrong one. We have the concept of income tax even prior to the 1961. Even prior to the year 1961. In the year 1857, there was an historical movement happened in India. Can anyone tell me what was happening in the year 1857? This is the root cause for the concept of income tax, which was introduced in India. This is the root cause, 1857 movement. Can anyone tell me? What was happening in the year 1857? No one. Indo-British Finance Act. Okay, very good. Anyone else? See, in the year 1857, the historical movement of what happened was this. Military mutiny. Military mutiny, which is called as the First War of Independence. First War of Independence. In Telugu, what it is called as is Sipahi Tirugubatu Udyamam. Sipahi Tirugubatu Udyamam, the First War of Independence. In the year 1857, we are under the ruling of Britishers. So we need our independence back. Right? So from 1857 onwards, we started fighting against the Britishers regarding our independence. So the first war of independence happened in the year 1857, which is technically called as military mutiny or Sepoy mutiny. Of course, we lost in that mutiny, we lost in that war. Otherwise, we would have received our independence in the year 1857 itself. Right? We lost in that particular mutiny, but though we have lost that particular war, there is huge loss of financial damage. There is a huge financial damage to the Britishers. the Britishers. Though India lost the war, they have made huge financial damage to the Britishers. You might have seen in a movie, there was a movie where hero plays double action, dual. So the father character played a patriotic role. He fought against the Britishers regarding the independence. He worked in the Indian military. Subhash Chandra Bose of Venkatesh. No. There is a scene, I'll tell you, when they are fighting with the Britishers, when they came to know that they are going to lose that particular war, hero and his friends together decided for the self-destruction, suicide. When they came to know that they are going to lose that war. So anyhow, we are going to lose this particular war. Okay, let's make some damage to the Britishers. Right? So what they have done is they have taken all the bombs and they have placed the bombs across all their bodies, and they went into the tankers of the Britishers and blasted themselves. Or they went into the godowns of the Britishers, weapons go down, everything, and blast themselves. Suicide, self-suicide. What is that movie, man? Yes, very good. Bharatiya. Just a second, ma. Bharatiya is a movie. Right? So many of our friends said so many movie names like Linga, Kanche, no. Bharatiya. In the second half, you might have observed this scene. In the second half, first half, like a son, right? That who is working as, in an RTO office. And second half comes to the flashback where the father character introduced, who is a patriot and a military person in that movie. When Kamal Hassan and his friends knows that, okay, we are going to lose this war, they decide for the suicide. Unfortunately, all of his friends died, but Kamal Hassan, even he also tried to suicide, but British has taken off him from the tank, behind the tank, right? And he sent to the jail. So like that, in that particular war, there is a huge financial damage to the Britishers. In order to cover this financial loss, in order to cover this financial damage, they have identified, yes, because of this war, we had this financial damage. Because of the Indians, we had this financial damage. So let them compensate for it. Let them pay for it. So we need to recover all our financial sources. We need to recover all our financial damage from Indians, who are the main reason for it. So that is why they have introduced the concept of income tax. They have introduced the concept of income tax. So they started levying income tax for recovering this financial damage. For recovering this financial damage. So this is how the concept of income tax has been introduced into India. This is how. And the person behind it is Mr. James Wilson. So James Wilson, he is said to be the first Indo-British finance minister. Mr. James Wilson is the person who introduced the concept of income tax in India, and this has came into the picture in the year 1860. for the first time. For the first time in the year 1860, Mr. James Wilson, the first Indo-British finance minister, has introduced the concept of income tax in India. They have started levying the income tax on us from the year 1860. And the reason for it is the military mutiny. 1857 movement is the main reason behind it. Okay, ma'am. And after that, whatever the income tax act they have introduced, there has been underwent so many changes, right? We have seen the changes in the year 1912, sorry, in the year 1918. We have seen the new income tax act, of course, prepared by the Britishers only. And this income tax act again has been amended in the year 1922. In the year 1922. And after, though we got independence in the year 1947, from 1947 to 1960, in this period also, though we got independence, even in this period also, and approximately 13 years, we used to follow the Income Tax Act, which was created by the Britishers. Britishers Income Tax Act ne follow ayyavallam till 1960. Are you following now? Right? In the year 1960, 1961, in this time period, our Indians, our finance department, along with the CBDT, Central Board of Direct Taxes, and they have created our own act. And finally, in the year 1961, we got our Indian Income Tax Act. Indian Income Tax Act. This is our own act, Indian Income Tax Act. And till today, we are following the same only. Till today, whatever the sections we are going to learn, all that sections have been taken from the Indian Income Tax Act 1961, which was introduced and which came into effect from 1/4/1962. From 1/4/1962. Many of the students will get confused here because of this year. Sir, Indian Income Tax Act 1961, you are saying that it is a 1961 Act, but you are saying that it has came into effect from 1962 years. Though the heading was there as 1961, but its impact, its effectiveness came into picture from 1/4/1962. Are you following now? So this is the history of income tax in India. Why it has introduced and how it was introduced, right? So this is a story. Clear, everyone? Next, let's moving on. What is the second question mark? How? Sorry, what? What is income tax? This is our second question. What is income tax? Very good. Already one student responded. It is a tax and income. Very good, ma. Inka? Right, whatever you said is correct, ma. Absolutely, Chandu. Answer. Income tax is nothing but it is a tax on income. It is a tax on income. Now, immediately a question arises. Now, what is that question? Sir, okay, you said income tax means it is a tax on income. Then, what do you mean by income? What do you mean by income? If he knows that, okay, this is income on which a tax is leviable, and that is what we call income tax. But first of all, we should understand what do you mean by income. Income is the word defined in section number 2, clause 24. Section 2, clause 24. Section 2, clause 24 defines the word income. Defines the word income. Section 2, clause 24. You should pronounce this as a clause, not as a subsection. Many of the students will do mistake here. They will read it as section 2, subsection 24. Absolutely wrong. It is section 2, clause 24. Section 2 is a definition section. For definition sections, immediately within the brackets, whatever we have, it is to be called as a clause, not as a subsection. So section 2, clause 24 explains about the word income. But of course, we are not going to discuss about the income right now immediately. With immediate effect, we are not going to discuss because it is too early to discuss. Income is a word having the definition in 5 different chapters. In 5 different chapters. Its definition scattered. Its definition scattered over 5 chapters. In that respective chapters, we will discuss what do you mean by the income. We will discuss what do you mean by the income. It's very early to discuss. Okay, ma? So for the time being, what you need to understand is what do you mean by the tax, income tax? Income tax means it is a tax on income. What do you mean by income? We will learn at the appropriate places. We will learn at the appropriate places. Clear, everyone? Next, here comes the third question. How the concept of income tax has been introduced into India. In the question number 1, we have learned that just a second now. In the question number 1, we have learned that why the concept of income tax has been introduced. Now, in this question, we are going to discuss about how it was introduced. Of course, it was introduced by the Britishers, but after Britishers left India, why still we are following it? It's not a concept introduced by Indians, it's a concept introduced by Britishers. See, in order to introduce a new kind of taxation system into India, we must be having authorization. Okay, sir, authorization from where? So, in India, who is the highest authority? Whose decision is final? Everyone should abide, everyone should follow that particular provisions. Which is the highest authority? President of India, okay. Inka. The highest authority, everyone should follow. Everyone should abide the provisions. Central Board, CBIT, okay. The correct answer is that Constitution of India, the highest authority, Indian Constitution. Constitution of India. Everyone, President, Prime Minister, everyone should follow the provisions of this Constitution. Right now. So, in order to introduce a new kind of taxes into India, we must be having the authorization from Indian Constitution. Without having the authorization from Indian Constitution, no one, even the Prime Minister, even the Finance Minister, have the right to introduce the taxes into India. They must have the authorization from Indian Constitution. In Indian Constitution, we have so many, we have preamble, we have so many schedules, we have so many articles, we have so many lists, right? Now, among that, there are two relevant articles. We have two relevant articles. They are article number 265, article number 246, article number 265 and article number 246. What these articles explains about? First, look at here. Article number 265 saying that when there is no authorization from the Indian Constitution, then there is no power to levy the taxes. Then there is no power to levy the taxes. So only when you have the authorization from the Indian Constitution, you can levy the taxes, you can introduce the taxes in India. Now this authorization is provided in article number 246. If authorization provided, now the government have the power to levy the taxes. Then the government will have the power to levy the taxes. So these are the two relevant articles when it comes to the taxation system in India. Article number 265, it explains that when there is no authorization, then the government have no power to levy the taxes. But the 246 article gives the power to the government, whereby the government have now the power to introduce new kind of taxes in India. Right now. Next. In article number 246, we have so many schedules. And among that schedules, schedule number 7 is relevant to us. Schedule number 7, read with article number 246. Now, in this schedule number 7, we have 3 different types of lists. Hope everyone maintaining the running notes. Very good, ma'am. Very good. In this schedule number 7, we are going to have the 3 different types of lists. 3 lists. List 1, list 2, list 3. List 1 is called as union list. List 2 is called as state list. List 3 is called as concurrent list. Concurrent list. List 1 union list, which can also be called as central list. List 2 state list, and list 3 concurrent list. Now, what these lists are contains about? Now, if you look at the list 1, whatever the matters prescribed here, whatever the matters prescribed here, all the matters will be prescribed in the form of entries, like entry number 1, entry number 2, entry number 3, so on up to we have 97 entries in the union list. Now, whatever the matters prescribed in these entries, and all these matters, the power to levy the taxes, is with central government. So that means it is the exclusive power of the central government to levy the taxes on the matters which are prescribed in the union list or central list. Apply the same logic. Whatever the matters prescribed in the state list, again in the form of entries, like entry number 1, entry number 2, entry number 3, so on up to entry number 54. So on up to entry number 54. And all these matters, it is the exclusive power of the state government to levy the taxes. So list 2, state list. The matters prescribed in the list 2, on that matters, it is the exclusive power of the state government to levy the taxes. Now coming to the concurrent list. Now you tell me which government have the power to levy the taxes here. Which government have the power to levy the taxes on the matters prescribed in the concurrent list? Very good answer. Very good. Everyone saying the correct answer. Here the answer is that both central government and as well as state government have the power to levy the taxes on the matters prescribed in the concurrent list. Now, coming to our income tax. My income tax is levied by state government or central government? Income tax levied by whom, sir? Income tax is levied by. Very good. Income tax is levied by and leviable by central government only. It is a central tax. Central government is absolutely correct answer. It is a central tax. So that means It is the exclusive right of the central government to levy the income tax. That means in which list it is going to be covered. The list 1 or list 2 or list 3. In which list it is going to be covered? Very good. It's going to be covered in the list 1. It is going to be covered in the list 1 because it is a central tax. Because it is a central tax. And in the form of entry number 82. Entry number 82 deals with taxes on income. Entry number 82 deals with taxes on income. Now I can say the authorization. Authorization. Central government, from where it has got the authorization for the purpose of levy of income tax. From where it has got that authorization. Answer is entry number 82 of list 1 of schedule 7 to the Constitution of India. Entry number 82 of list 1 of schedule number 7. So from this particular entry number 82, our central government have the power, received the power, authorization for the purpose of levy of income tax in India. If someone asks you, who is the levying authority of income tax? You can say central government. Okay, from where it has got the power? అసలు సెంట్రల్ గవర్నమెంట్ కి పవర్ ఎక్కడ ఇచ్చారు అని మిమ్మల్ని ఎవరైనా క్వశ్చన్ చేస్తే మీరు చెప్పాల్సిన ఆన్సర్ ఏంటమ్మా? దిస్ ఇస్ ద ఆన్సర్ యూ నీడ్ టు టోల్. Entry number 82 of list 1 of schedule 7 to the Constitution of India. బాబు మన ఇండియన్ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ లో డిఫరెంట్ ఆర్టికల్స్ ఉంటాయమ్మా. అందులో ఆర్టికల్ నెంబర్ 246, schedule number 7. In that schedule number 7 we have 3 different types of lists. In that list 1, which is called as central list, a list 1 లో entry number 82. So ఈ entry number 82 ద్వారా ఇండియన్ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ సెంట్రల్ గవర్నమెంట్ కి పవర్ ఇచ్చింది. సో సెంట్రల్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఆ పవర్ ని యూజ్ చేసుకొని ఇన్కమ్ ట్యాక్స్ ని లెవీ చేస్తుంది. దిస్ ఇస్ ఆన్సర్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు టోల్డ్. Clear everyone? So one must have this knowledge. Right. So far completed. Any doubts, please ask me, sir. And if you miss any running notes, please let me know. I will go to that notes, that particular notes. There is a doubt from the student chat. Then state government doesn't have the power to levy the tax. Which tax you are talking about? If you are talking about income tax, yes. State government will not have any power to levy the income tax. Income tax is the exclusive right of the central government. No doubts? Very good. Let's continue, sir. Even if you miss any running notes, please let me know more. Next, here comes the second one. Administration. Administrative authority for income tax. See, with the help of the authorization, our central government have started levying the income tax, and it has created introduced our own act, Indian Income Tax Act 1961, and which has came into effect from 1/4/1962. See, just creating an act and implement it, it's not enough. There should be one person who has to look after whether the taxpayers are following the provisions of income tax or not. They are complying with the provisions of income tax or not. There must be some administrative authority. Now, who are the administrative authorities when it comes to income tax? Answer is CBIT. Wrong answer. CBDT is correct answer. Very good. See, basically, ma'am, the highest authority regarding all types of taxes in India is that Ministry of Finance. Ministry of Finance. In this Ministry of Finance, we used to have the different departments. Of course, we are having different types of departments like Department of Revenues, Department of Disinvestments, Department of Expenses, Department of Foreign Affairs. Like this, we will be having different departments. In this, the relevant department to us is Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue. Now, in this Department of Revenue, we'll be having two independent statutory boards. Two independent statutory boards. What are they? Number one, CBDT. Number two, CBIC. CBIC. CBDT stands for Central Board of Direct Taxes. Central Board of Direct Taxes, which will look after all direct taxes in India. So for direct taxes, the administrative authority is CBDT. And direct taxes, the best example, I can say income tax. Income tax is the best example for direct taxes. So that means for income tax, the administrative authority is CBDT, Central Board of Direct Taxes, administrative authority. And CBIC stands for very good, ma'am. Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs Duties. Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs Duties. CBIC stands for, which will look after all indirect taxes matters. Which will look after all indirect taxes matters. And for indirect taxes, we can take the best examples: GST and customs duty. GST and customs duty. So that means for GST and customs duty, who is the administrative authority? The administrative authority is CBIC. For direct taxes, CBDT. So the administrative authority for income taxes, CBDT, Central Board of Direct Taxes, which will look after whether all the taxpayers are complying with the provisions of income tax or not, and which will look after the changes, the amendments required for the existing acts. Okay, fine, sir. Very good. So first we have learned authorization, then we have learned administration. Now here comes the third part. Judiciary. Who are the judiciary authorities when it comes to income tax? When it comes to income tax. So what is the need of judiciary authorities here? Why? Because, see, Income Tax Act, whenever we are saying it is an act, it's a law, it's a law subject, income tax law subject. And law ఎలా ఉంటుందంటే సార్ ఎవరికి ఎలా అర్థమైతే అదే law. Right, and that means there is always a scope for misinterpretations. There is always a scope for deviations from the original provision. Law subjects will always be like that only. The provision will be this, and you will be understanding this. Provision of విధంగా ఉంటుంది, దాన్ని నువ్వు ఇంకో విధంగా అర్థం చేసుకుంటావు. అర్థమవుతుందా? అంటే like, see, there is a provision called Rama is a good boy. Ramu is a good boy. You can understand that, okay, Ramu is a good boy. That doesn't mean that remaining students in the class are not the bad boys, are not the, bad boys. They are also good boys. Okay, Ramu is a good boy. But some of the people will understand the same provision like, okay, Ramu is the only student in the class is a good boy. He's the only student who is a good boy. So that means Ramu is a good boy means remaining all the students except Ramu are bad boys. And there is always interpretation difference. That is why you have a chapter called Interpretation of Statutes in the law subject. It's separate chapter in the interpretation of statutes. How to interpret this provision, how to understand this provision, what is the true intention of the lawmaker, how to interpret the provision ni ela ardham chesukovali ani cheppadaniki meeku separate ga oka chapter undi. Other laws lo, yes, ardhamautunda. So in a similar manner, income tax also there are lot of provisions which gives rise to the difference of opinions, which you feel that, sir, why should I understand this provision only in this manner? Why can't I understand in that manner? You will ask the doubts, ma. Right, పొద్దున మీకు నేను ఒక ప్రొవిజన్ చెప్తున్నప్పుడు, సరే ప్రొవిజన్ నేను ఇలానే ఎందుకు అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి, అలా ఎందుకు అర్థం చేసుకోకూడదు అనే డౌట్ మీరు రేస్ చేస్తారు, రేస్ చేయాలి కూడా. You have to raise that doubt because this is income tax subject, which is a law subject. So there is always a scope for misinterpretations. And because of this misinterpretations, what was happened is there is a difference of opinions between the taxpayer and assessing officer. Taxpayer, technically we call him as SSC. Technically we call him as SSC. SSC is the word defined in section number 2 clause 7. There I will tell you what do you mean by an SSC, but for the timing you can understand that SSC means a taxpayer, the person who is liable for the payment of tax. A person who is liable to payment of tax is called as SSC. Next, assessing officer. Assessing officer, in simple terms you can understand he is belonging to income tax department. He is belonging to income tax department. In a simple language, income tax officer అనుకోండి ప్రస్తుతానికి. Assessing officer means income tax officer. So there is a difference of opinion happened between the taxpayer and assessing officer because of the misinterpretation of the provision. Taxpayer understand the provision in a different manner. Assessing officer understand the provision in a different manner. Because of this, there is a dispute arises between these two persons. Dispute. Now, in order to resolve this dispute, where they have to go? To whom they have to approach? Then a civil issue now, criminal issue now, and a dispute వచ్చిందనుకోండి, we will approach the courts. Right now, in a civil issue no, criminal issue no, అయితే కోర్టుకి వెళ్తాం మనం. మరి if that issue is belonging to income tax, then which court we will approach? Which court will solve our dispute? A dispute between the assessing officer and taxpayer. So disputes also, sir, yes, so many disputes. Commissioner of Income Tax, one answer. Okay, good. So first of all, if there is any dispute arises between the taxpayer and assessing officer, first of all, the first appeal lies with CIT-A. CIT stands for, yes, what you said is correct. Commissioner of Income Tax. Commissioner of Income Tax. And A stands for Appeals Division. Appeals Division. So for Appeals Division, the highest rank authority, Commissioner of Income Tax. So the first appeal lies with CIT-A, Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals. So our case went to him. Sir, assuming that in this particular first appeal, we have lost. We have lost. And that means Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals Division has given the decision in favor of assessing officer. So ikkada meeku against ga decision ochindi. Now you have the right to challenge that decision. You can go for second appeal. Now second appeal lies with IT-AD. You can challenge the decision given by the Commissioner of Income Tax in front of IT-AD. IT-AD stands for Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Okay, ma'am. Sir, what if the case if I lost even in second appeal? That means IT-AD also has given the decision in favor of department, in favor of assessing officer. Babu, what's wrong with the decision given by our people? Assessing officer, whatever he saying that's correct. Babu, taxpayer, you have to pay the differential tax liability pay. So IT-AD lo kuda meeku against ga decision ochindi. Now this decision you can be challenged in High Court. You can go for High Court now. You can challenge the decision given by the IT-AD in High Court. Sir, what if the case even in High Court I lost? Yes, you can challenge the decision given by the High Court in Supreme Court. So what if the case if I lost in Supreme Court also? Supreme Court also given the decision in favor of Income Tax Department. Now Is there any way available to me? Is there any option available to me? Can we challenge the decision given by the Supreme Court? President, no. See, we cannot challenge the decision given by the Supreme Court, but we can file a review petition. We still have one option, that is filing of the review petition. We can file a review petition to the Supreme Court and we can request the Supreme Court to review its decision. Dear Supreme Court, whatever the decision given by you, in our opinion, it's not correct. Please review your decision once again. Please review the facts and circumstances of the case once again. Please go through all the arguments of the assessee and the assessing officer. So like this, we can file a review petition. Just by filing a review petition, we cannot expect a decision in favor of us. But it is a chance. Okay, ma. Review petition file చేసినంత మాత్రాన decision మీకు favorable గా వస్తుందని అనుకోవద్దండి. బట్ అదొక ఛాన్స్ ఉంది, ఒక ఆప్షన్ ఉందని చెప్తున్నాను అంతే. There were so many cases which came up to Supreme Court and decided by the Supreme Court. And some of the cases we are going to be learned in our syllabus as a part of our syllabus. Manjula Jesha, CIT versus Manjula Jesha, Mahendra Mills versus CIT, Vanya Silks Limited versus CIT, CIT versus BC Srinivasa Setty. These are some famous case laws we are going to learn at CA inter level. These are some famous case laws. So, do we require to remember the case law names and do we require to write the case laws in our main exams? Answer is no. There is no requirement at all. Make me specific okay case law ichi or case law ni already decided case law to answer cheyandi alani questions em raw at CA inter level, but at CA final level yes. At CA final level yes, as a part of your syllabus around 30 to 40 case laws will be given and you need to prepare and you need to go through all the facts and circumstances of that case laws. You need to remember that case law names and you need to produce the same in your main exams. At CA final level it is there, but at CA inter level no need to remember the case law names. But if you remember and write it in your main answers, it will be fetching to you, advantageous to you. Clear, ma'am? Now this is the judiciary systems when it comes to the income tax. So income tax related in a dispute, say this is how it is going to be resolved. First appeal lies with whom, sir? First appeal lies with CITA, Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals Division. Second appeal, ITAT, Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Majority of the cases will be decided here on this. Majority of the cases. Very few cases will go to High Court and Supreme Court. Clear, everyone? So for income tax, we can say who are the judiciary authority. I can say that income tax appellate tribunals or the judiciary authorities of income tax. Okay, ma'am. So far we have learned what? We have learned about authorization, administration, judiciary systems. These are technically called as first three estates of India. First three estates. First estate, authorization. Second estate, administration, administrative authority. Third estate, judiciary system. And can anyone tell me what is the fourth estate of India? Very good. Rupesh. Try everyone. What is the fourth estate of India? Already one student told the answer correctly. Parliament, wrong answer. Yeah, very good. Very good. Try ma, everyone should try. The correct answer is fourth estate is media. Media is the fourth estate. Right now. See, you might have seen this kind of scene in a movie name called Rocky. How many of you watched that movie Rocky? Started by Junior NDR, Ileana, Junior NDR, Ileana, Krishnavamshi movie, Rocky. DSP is a music director. Yes. In that movie, Suhasini has played a key role, a very important role. She is a cop in that movie. She is a cop. And Brahmanandam is the owner of a media channel. There's a conversation between Brahmanandam and Suhasini. When Suhasini came to arrest Brahmanandam, he said that you should not arrest us. You know, we are from media channel. We are the fourth estate of India. You should not arrest. You cannot arrest. Then Suhasini asked, okay, I will leave you if you told me what are the first three estates. You said media is the fourth estate, correct? Tell me what are the first three estates, then I will leave you. Do you remember that movie scene? Second half loss in monkey scene. Then Brahmananda failed to told. He don't know the first three estates. He knows that media is a fourth estate. That's it. What are the first three estates? Don't know. The first three estates are authorization, administration, judiciary. Okay, ma. We have learned all these three when it comes to income tax. Any doubts? Very good. Now let's moving on to the next subject, next topic. Sir, I have a question. Why are taxes levied? Why are taxes levied? So why the government levying these taxes? Why the government levying these taxes? We have different taxes like income tax, goods and services tax, customs duty. Like this, we have different types of taxes. Why? Why the government levying these taxes? To fulfill the basic needs of the common people. Very good. Inga. For social and economic objectives to build the nation, generate the income to the government. Very good. Revenue to the government for welfare activities to generate income. Very good. income to the government for satisfy the needs of the public, development of the economy, sources of revenue. Very nice, Mark. Right. First of all, we can say that the government levying all these taxes its taxes are one of the major source of revenue to the government. Taxes are the major source of revenue to the government. Approximately from income tax, the government collecting almost 12 lakhs crores every year, approximately. And only from GST, the government collecting approximately 20 lakhs crores. 20 lakhs crores. These are approximate figures, not exact figures. Approx. So approximately 32 to 35 lakhs crores are the revenues from the taxes. Now a question arises, sir. Now what the government is doing with these revenues? Now what is the need of revenue to the government? What is the need of revenues to the government? Yes, as you already, many of the people said, correct answer, whatever you were told. The need of revenues to fulfill the basic needs of the public. Right. See, we have seen the need for generating these revenues is to meet basic needs of the public, to achieve socio-economic objectives, to provide funds to roads, dams, canals, all other infra facilities, right, ma? And to provide the funds to the government schools, yes, expenses in relation to the defense, education, healthcare, and infrastructure. For all these purposes, government needs revenues, right? And one of the major source of revenue to the government is income tax, GST, customs duty. Sir, okay, fine. Let's do one thing, sir. You are saying that government needs revenue for doing all these activities. Yes. Okay, just tell me, sir, how much the government needs. Yes, the government needs, let it be some 40 lakhs crores. For the time being, assume that let it be some 40 lakhs crores. Okay. Let's do one thing, sir. Let's go for the currency printing. When you know the need, when you know the amount, why don't you print that currency? You need 40 lakhs crores, right? Yes. Okay, give the order to our currency printing department, which is there in Nasik, the headquarters. And currency printing headquarters Nasik lo unnayamma. Right? So give the order 40 lakhs crores. Oh dear currency printing people, are India in need of 40 lakhs crores? So immediately print that currency and release into the open market. So instead of collecting the taxes from the public, we'll go for this option. So let's make India is a tax-free country. What will happen, sir, if new currency comes into the picture? What will happen? Yes, many of the students already responded. Very good. Inflation increases. Right? There is a decrease in the value of rupee. There is no value for the money. Very good. Inflation peripotundamba. Rupee value padipotundi. So when lot of currency comes into the market, these are the problems. That is why we cannot print new currency. Print చేయలేము. మార్కెట్ లో ఉన్న కరెన్సీనే మనం సర్క్యులేట్ చేయాలి. We need to circulate. But sir, we have seen in the recent times new currency in the form of 2000 rupees notes, new currency in the form of 500 rupees notes at the time of demonetization. మరి అప్పుడు ఇన్ఫ్లేషన్ జరగలేదా సార్? First of all, it is not a new currency, it is a replacement currency. It is a replacement currency. So no, we have taken back that old 100 rupees notes and old, 1000 old 500 rupees notes and old 1000 rupees notes. Old notes, 500 old notes, 1000 rupees notes back, and in the place of it, we have introduced 2000 rupees notes and new 500 rupees notes. So it's a replacement currency, it's not a new currency. That is why inflation has not taken place. Right? If currency printing is the solution, right, ma? America what calls the currency printing cheskuntaru with whatever the technology he is having now. But endu cheskovatledu because he knows the consequences. Right? So why are taxes levied? This is the main reason. First of all, the government needs the revenue. Revenue for what? Revenue to meet the basic needs of the public. Revenue to achieve the socio-economic objectives. Revenue to provide the funds to the, all infrastructure facilities, roads, dams, canals, bridges, culverts, metro, and, all defense, education, healthcare. For all these purposes, government needs revenue. That is why the government is levying taxes. That's the main reason behind the levy of taxes. Did you understand, everyone? Very good. Next. Moving on. Sir, what if the new currency is used only for the purposes of constructing such as dams and roads? Okay, you are saying that let us use that new currency only for the construction of dams and roads. Good. Who are going to construct it? Construction companies. And that means you are being the government giving that new currency to the construction companies. That means now the construction company is going to give the same money to whom? To the employees who are working for that project. Right? So when the money reaches to the employees, what the employee is going to do with that money? He's going to buy whatever he needs. He's going to receive the services whatever he needs. And that means again the money comes into the market. The money will be comes into the circulation. So that's not possible. Okay. Next, sir, you are saying that tax. What do you mean by tax, first of all? What do you mean by tax? What do you mean by tax? What is a tax? Compulsory extortion of money. Okay. Fee charged by the government. Okay, good. Right. The simple answer is that money paid by the public to the government. Okay. Answer is that it is a fee charged by the government it is a fee charged by the government on income, goods, services, and activities. It is a fee charged by the government on income, goods, services, and activities. This is what we call tax. Now, let us try to understand. It is a fee charged by the government. Sir, what do you mean by government here? Does it mean a central government, a state government? Who? Here, it can be central government, it can be state government, it can be local government, or it can be union territory. Here, government means to be central government, state government, local government, which is called as local authorities like municipalities, panchayats, corporations, cantonment boards, could be anything. And finally, UT, union territories. Union territories. So government means to be, could be any of government. And it is levied on income. So when you are levying it on income, it is called as income tax. When you are levying that tax on income, that is called as income tax. When you are levying on goods and services, it is called as GST, goods and services tax. Goods and services tax. When you are levying on activities of import and export, when you are levying it on imports and exports, then it will be called as customs duty. It is called as customs duty. Okay, ma. So when that fee is levying on income, it is called as income tax. When the same fee is levying on goods and services, it is called as GST, goods and services tax. And when it is levied on activities of exports and imports, then customs duty is leviable. So this is about the tax, the definition of tax. Complete, ma'am. Now let's moving on. Now let next concept and the last topic for today's class. Types of taxes. Types of taxes. There are two different types of taxes, ma'am. Direct taxes, indirect taxes. Direct taxes, indirect taxes. Two different types of taxes. direct taxes and indirect taxes. Now coming to the direct taxes, we can take the example income tax. And if you want one more example, I can say professional tax. Professional tax, PT, professional tax. Income tax is levied by the central government. Professional tax is levied by the concerned state governments. State government. Now, when it comes to the indirect taxes, the best example, GST, customs duty. GST and customs duty. Okay, ma'am. So, okay, you said there are two different types of taxes, right? Direct taxes, indirect taxes, and you also given me examples. But sir, what it is actually means? What is a direct tax? What is an indirect tax? How to differentiate them? This is a direct tax. This is an indirect tax. Why are you calling income tax as a direct tax? Why are you calling GST as an indirect tax? Why can't we call GST as a direct tax? Why can't we call income tax as an indirect tax? Why? What are the differences between them? The differences between direct taxes and indirect taxes. That's our next topic. Hope you are maintaining running notes now, writing now. Enough time is there for you to write, copy all this. Yeah. Very good. Next, moving on. Differences between direct taxes and indirect taxes. Differences between direct taxes and indirect taxes. Our next topic. Now you have to divide your notes, your page into two parts, ma. Into two parts. First part heading direct taxes. Second part heading indirect taxes. First part heading direct taxes. Second part heading indirect taxes. Okay, ma'am. Right. So let's take down the differences between direct taxes and indirect taxes. First difference. Incidence and impact will fall on the same person. Incidence and impact will fall on the same person. Coming to indirect taxes. Incidence is on one person and impact will be on another person. Impact will be on another person. This is the first difference. This is the first difference. Incidence and impact will fall on the same person. Incidence is on one person and impact will be on another person. Now, Before trying to understand this difference, first we should understand what do you mean by incidence and what do you mean by impact. Sir, incidence means to be levy of taxes. Levy of taxes. Impact means to be burden to pay taxes. Burden to pay the taxes. Burden of payment. Burden of payment. So when it comes to the direct taxes, incidence, the levy of tax and burden of payment of tax lies with same person. Lies with same person. If you take the example of income tax, see, I'm earning income. Let us assume that my income in every year 10 lakhs rupees. So I'm earning the income. So income tax is levied on me. Income tax is levied on me. Now on that income, the income tax is levied on me and I am the person to discharge the tax liability. I am the person to discharge the tax liability. So the burden of payment of taxes is lies with me only because I am the person earning it, earning income. See, if I am earning the income and I am asking you to pay the taxes, will you pay on behalf of me? Babu నాకు 10 lakhs income వచ్చిందమ్మా. ఈ ఇన్కమ్ మీద ఒక 1.5 lakhs tax liability వచ్చింది. ఈ 1.5 lakhs tax liability మీరు పే చేయండి అంటే మీరు పే చేస్తారా? Will you pay the tax on behalf of me? Answer is absolutely no. Sir, you only earning income now? Yes. Then you have to pay the taxes, sir. Why should we pay the taxes on your income? It's your income. You have to pay the tax on it. Clear now? So when it comes to the direct taxes, the incidence, impact falls on the same person. The person whoever earning the income have to pay the tax on it. But when it comes to the indirect taxes, incidence is on one person, impact will be on another person. Like, if you take the example of GST, goods and services tax. Goods and services tax, it is a tax leviable on manufacturers. If you take the example of GST, it is a tax leviable on manufacturers, on service providers, on importers, and exporters. But the burden of payment of tax, the burden lies with whom? The burden lies with ultimate consumer. The burden of payment of tax lies with ultimate consumer. See, when you're buying, yesterday I asked you to purchase a notebook. Assume that you have purchased a new notebook. What rupees? 150 rupees. What you're observing, ma? MRP rupees 150. Within the brackets, you will observe what? Inclusive of all taxes. And this 150 rupees is consisting of what? All taxes. And who is paying the tax? Customer is paying the tax. But it is leviable on whom? Leviable on the manufacturer of that notebook. You purchased Classmate notebook. Who are the manufacturers? ITC. So the GST is leviable on ITC. So ITC company will, convert that liability, that will distribute that liability to the distributors, shift that liability to the distributors. Distributor shift the GST liability to the wholesaler. Wholesaler shift the liability to the retailer, and retailer will shift the liability to the consumer, and the consumer has to bear it. So the incidence is on manufacturer, service providers, import and exporters. The incidence is on wholesalers, retailers, distributors, but the burden of payment of taxes lies with whom? Consumers, the ultimate consumers. That is why these are called as indirect taxes. GST is an indirect tax. Why it is an indirect tax? Because you are paying tax, but are you paying tax to department directly? You purchased classmate notebook from a nearby stationery. And that means you are paying the tax to that stationary person, not to the department directly. But stationery దగ్గరికి above ఎంతైంది sir 150 rupees. Okay, out of 150 what is the tax element? Let it be 10 rupees. బాబు stationary person take 140 rupees. ఈ 10 rupees తీసుకెళ్ళి నేను డిపార్ట్మెంట్ పే చేస్తాను. Will they accept? No, they won't accept. Yes or no? Right? You went to a restaurant. You want to enjoy the success of your CA foundation results. There are success enjoy cheddam well restaurant bill 10,000 rupees aindi. You might have observed the restaurant bill, the value of the goods and services provided 10,000. You'll observe CGST at the rate of 2.5%, 250 rupees. SGST the rate of 2.5%, 250 rupees. Total bill value 10,500. Total bill value 10,500. Now, how much will you pay to the restaurant? Are you going to pay only 10,000 or are you going to pay 10,500? How much you are going to pay to the restaurant person? It is 10,500 you have to pay. Sir, this GST portion I will pay to the department directly. So I'll pay only 10,000 to the restaurant people. Will they accept? No, they don't accept. Restaurant lo 10,500 pay cheyali. అంతేగాని బాబు 500 tax element ని డిపార్ట్మెంట్ కి డైరెక్ట్ గా పే చేసుకుంటాను. నీ బిల్ ఎంత 10,000 or take this 10,000. Now what the restaurant person will say? What are you talking? You have to pay 10,500. If you don't have that 500, don't worry, we have a kitchen. So this is a way to kitchen. And చెప్పి చూపిస్తాడు మీకు ఎందుకు? Why? Because in order to wash the utensils for that 500 rupees, yes or no? So you are paying GST to the restaurant people, but not directly to the department. So you are paying tax, but not directly. You are paying tax indirectly. So that is why GST is a indirect tax. But when it comes to the income tax, since last 9 years, I am paying income tax. Now I am paying income tax directly to the department. No middleman. I am paying income tax directly to the department. So that is why income tax is a direct tax. Incidence and impact falls on me only. So income tax is levied on me, and that income tax I am directly paid to the department. No one will share my tax liability. But when it comes to the indirect taxes, the levy is on one person and the burden of payment of tax lies with the another person. So indirectly the consumer is paying tax here. Clear everyone? Any doubts? So we are already running out of the time. So we'll stop the session today here. So if you have any doubts, please ask me, ma'am. Anyone, any doubts in today's class? Very good. So that's it for today. Have a good day and see you in tomorrow's class.